Hey, it's Kaitlin,
Hey, it's Christine.
and today we're going to be talking about cognitive dissonance. And first, we're going to start off with the first three hypotheses from Leon Festinger, who was a Stanford University social psychologist. And I'm going to start off by defining cognitive dissonance according to Leon Festinger. Cognitive dissonance is the distressing mental state that people feel when they find themselves doing things that don't fit with what they know or opinions that do not fit with other opinions they hold. Fessinger uses the examples of smoking throughout most of the book, which is people know smoking is bad, but they still smoke. And an example I have of this would be tanning in a tanning bed. Girls tan, but they know that they have the risk of getting skin cancer. Another example would be teen pregnancy. Teens know that they have the chance of getting pregnant, but whether protected or not, but they still go into it and take that risk. Another example would be abortion. They don't agree with abortion, they're pro-life, but they still go out and get an abortion. Our textbook also gives examples of alcohol addiction, drugs, food, sex, porn, gambling, money, and shopping. A good example for me would be Dr. Pepper. I constantly tell myself I don't need a Dr. Pepper, but I go and get one anyways. And Fessinger hypothesized three mental mechanisms for people to ensure actions and attitudes are in harmony. So starting with hypothesis 1 is selective exposure prevents dissonance. And the example or the definition of selective exposure is the tendency people have to avoid information that would create dissonance. And Fessinger believed that we select what we want to read and hear. Also, who we want to be around. So the example for smoking, let's say this girl smokes, so I'm going to go hang out with her, so that way we can smoke together and I won't feel as bad. And the book gives the example of sticking with your own kind, so smokers sticking together. Tanning with a friend, you could say she's going to tan in a bed, so she has just as much greater chance of getting skin cancer as me, so I don't feel as bad if she's going to go do it too. And University of Connecticut, Stanford, Dave Alessio and Mike Allen with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee discovered in studies that people tend to select information that lined up with what they already believed and ignored facts and ideas that ran counter to those beliefs. So the tanning example again, you could read numerous articles over how many people in the last year have gotten skin cancer due to tanning beds, but you're still just going to ignore it and go to the tanning bed and kind of pretend you didn't hear it. So that's a little bit on selective exposure.
I'm going to talk about hypothesis 2 and 3. Hypothesis 2 is post-decision dissonance creates need for reassurance. So basically this is close call decisions that create internal tension after making your decision. The factors that heighten post-decision dissonance could be importance of the issue, delay in making of the decision, and difficulty in reversal of your decision. So I'm going to take one of Caitlin's examples of abortion and use it for post-decision dissonance. And so the thing that makes abortion a difficult decision is that maybe there's a limited amount of time when the woman has to make her decision, and so there's a lot more pressure. You can't reverse whatever decision you choose, and maybe a woman that did just have an abortion, she's okay with the decision, and then afterwards she might experience a lot more guilt than she thought she would, and asks people around her if she made the right decision so she can have that reassurance. And so now that we've looked at post-decision dissonance, we're going to look at hypothesis 3, which is minimal justification for actions induces a shift in attitude. Before the theory of cognitive dissonance, people would normally think that the way to change someone's behavior, you would first have to change their attitude. But not according to Festinger. How do you say his name? Festinger. Who reversed the sequence. And in Minimal Justification, he actually says that to change a person's attitude, You have to somehow change their behavior first, and their attitude will follow. So in the book, it gives an example of the movie Thank You for Smoking, where a man has to try and change an ex-smoker advertising icon who now has lung cancer, that he needs to stop bashing the tobacco companies, even though that's the cause of his lung cancer. So he's offered a lot of money in the movie, and so that he can keep quiet and just go about his life without keeping the tobacco companies from doing their job and getting whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. So anyways, since he makes this decision to take the money, even though he doesn't agree with what they're doing, this creates compliance without conviction. And basically what that is conformity without having that private conviction that matches your behaviors. So now Kaitlin will talk about the next thing.
Okay, now we're going to skip on over to page 223 and talk about the 3 state-of-the-art revisions, the cause and effect of dissonance. There's 3 different views from 3 different people, and the first one is self-consistency, the rationalizing animal. And on the bottom of the page, it has the Fessinger's process model of cognitive dissonance. And it starts out with A, attitude, behavior, inconsistency, which leads to B, dissonance created, which leads to C, attitude change, which leads to D, dissonance reduced. So the abortion example of attitude, behavior, and consistency would be not believing in abortion but getting an abortion, which leads to B, the dissonance created, the guilt and all that kind of stuff that you feel bad about, and then which leads to C, the attitude change, where you kind of get reassured and you kind of think, well, I did it for the right reasons, it's okay, which leads to D, the dissonance reduced, which makes you lose all that guilt and everything. And the University of California psychologist Elliot Aronson states that we are rationalizing animals who want to appear reasonable to ourselves. And also, the amount of dissonance a person can experience is directly proportional to the effort he or she has invested in the behavior. The textbook gives the example of frats and Marines. For example, frats, they go through so much hazing and they want to get that frat name so bad and be a part of that brotherhood so bad they'll do anything to their bodies. The Marines, they go through boot camp and do whatever they're told for a numerous amount of weeks just to be called a Marine, and they are so proud of that. So my example would be from the movie Steel Magnolias. Julia Roberts, she has diabetes, and she's told she should not have children, and that's the smart thing to do. But she just wants to have a child so bad, and that's going to be her happiness, that she puts her body through so much strain just to get that child. Kind of like the Marine puts their body through so much strain just to get that title. So she takes a risk, but she tells herself she's okay, and she reduces that dissonance. And then the second one is personal responsibility for bad outcomes. And this view is from Princeton psychologist Joel Cooper, and he believes that it's the knowledge that one's actions creates dissonance. And he defines dissonance as a state of arousal caused by behaving in such a way as to feel personally responsible for bringing out an aversive event. So basically just being responsible for your own words and actions. And the third one, self-affirmation to dissipate dissonance. This is based on a Stanford psychologist, Claude Stills. He believes that he doesn't assume that dissonance always drives people to justify their actions by changing their attitudes. He believes in high self-esteem, and the example they give in here is that Barack Obama said that once he's president, he will quit smoking. Well, we all know he hasn't, but he said that he would quit smoking, and so the potential for cognitive dissonance is great. But since he has high self-esteem for being the first black president and for winning the Nobel Prize, and examples such as that, he has the tendency to not create dissonance and maybe just a little bit, and maybe think like, well, it's okay, I'm still the president, so I can smoke, or I won the Nobel Peace Prize, give me a break. So the dissonance isn't as big as it should be because of his high self-esteem. And then...
So now I'm going to talk about different critiques of cognitive dissonance. And though there's a lot of people that agree with the theory, there's also a whole other group of people that find one serious flaw of Fessinger. The theory, which is the theory that researchers aim to get is that they get people to say something in public that's inconsistent with their beliefs in private. So when researchers see an attitude shift, they assume that dissonance was built up, but they never actually test it to see if the dissonance is there. And since they can't test it and there's no meter for dissonance, or as they call it, a dissonance thermometer, and Fessinger never gave a way to detect the degree of dissonance in a person, we will never actually know if the distressing mental state is there or not, which kind of creates some problems with if there even should be dissonance in the first place. And since not everyone agrees that there must be a meter for dissonance, there's other people that agree with what Daryl Bem came up with, which was his self-perception theory. It says that the way that we think we determine our attitudes is the same way that others do, which is by observing behavior. And this is, Daryl Bem agrees with Fessinger, but at the same time, it's an alternative look at cognitive dissonance. So, now we're going to give y'all our questions.
We each have 3 questions, and we'll write them on the board, but we'll go ahead and say them. My questions are, do you agree or disagree with the idea that selective exposure prevents dissonance? Why or why not? 2, do you agree with Cooper when he says that it is the knowledge of one's actions that creates dissonance? 3, which 3 of the state of the art revisions, the cause and effect of dissonance, do you agree with most? Explain.
And then I would like y'all to try and name a time when y'all have experienced cognitive dissonance in your own life. And if you haven't, then, or can't think of one, then maybe why you can't think of a reason or a time. And then I want you to think about considering the idea of compliance and the example I gave about thank you for smoking and the man who was given money to be quiet about his beliefs and bashing the company. Are there times when dissonance cannot be reduced? So the man agreed to be quiet, but yet was the dissonance still there? Yeah. And then do you agree or disagree with the theory of cognitive dissonance? And what is your opinion on the belief of a need for a dissonance meter? So,
thanks for watching.
Sorry if it was bad.
Yeah. Just answer the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Have fun.